Have you ever really thought about internet real estate? I'm not talking about websites, but the actual addresses themselves, the .coms, the .orgs. Well, it turns out some people treat these domain names just like property, buying up these undervalued digital lots and then selling them for a serious profit. So let's get into how you can sell your own little slice of the internet. What if I told you that a $10 investment could potentially give you a return of 10,000%? Yeah, it sounds pretty wild, but in the world of domain flipping, that's the kind of number that really gets people's attention. Now, of course, that's not a guarantee for every domain, but it just goes to show you the massive potential we're dealing with here. So what are we actually talking about here? Well, at its core, domain flipping is basically the art of buying domain names low and selling them high. And really, the best way to wrap your head around it is to think of it as digital real estate. You're out there scouting for a great piece of property nobody's noticed yet, you snap it up, and then you find a buyer who sees its true value. Okay, before you can even think about selling, you have to know what you've got. And this is without a doubt the most critical step. See, you make your profit or your loss the second you buy the domain, not when you sell it. So how do you figure out if you're sitting on a digital diamond or just some digital dust? So what are buyers actually looking for? Well, not all domains are created equal, that's for sure. The really high-value ones, they're short, they have just a few syllables, and they're super easy to brand. Think one or two simple words. And the low-value ones? They're usually long, a pain to remember, and honestly, totally forgettable. Let's dig in a little deeper. First off, that little bit at the end, the .com, .net, that's huge. A .com is almost always going to be worth more. It's just king. Then you ask, is the name catchy? Is it memorable? Does it have keywords in it that people are actually typing into search engines? And for the more advanced folks, things like a strong backlink profile or a totally clean history can seriously pump up the value. Okay, so you've taken a hard look at your domain, and you're pretty sure it's got some real value. Awesome. Now it's time to actually put it on the market. This is where the action happens. All right, your first big decision is how to price this thing. You've basically got two main paths. The first is a fixed price, or buy now. This is perfect for those really high-quality names, where you kind of know what it's worth. First person to meet your price gets it. Simple. The other way to go is an auction, which can be amazing for names that might spark a bidding war. And you can even set a secret reserve price, so it won't sell for anything less than you're happy with. Now, the actual process of listing your domain, it can feel a little technical, I get it, but we can really just break it down into 3 simple steps. First, pick your marketplace and set your price. Second, create the listing with a nice, clear description. And third, and you're going to want to pay attention here, you need to enable something called fast transfer. So what in the world is fast transfer? It sounds complicated, but it's actually a super simple change that makes a huge difference. All it means is you point your domain settings, the name servers, over to the marketplace. This lets them basically put a for sale sign on your domain, but more importantly, it lets them automatically hand the domain over to the buyer's account the second the payment is confirmed. It just makes the whole thing smooth, secure, and totally hands-off. And if you need a little more convincing, here's the financial incentive. Just look at the difference in commission fees. For a standard sale, the marketplace might take a whopping 25% cut. But if you enable fast transfer, that commission can drop all the way down to 15%. On a $2,000 sale, that's an extra $200 right back in your pocket just for changing one little setting. It's a no-brainer. You've listed your domain, you've found a buyer, you've even agreed on a price. Fantastic. Now for the most important part of all, making sure the whole thing is safe and you actually get your money. Okay, let's be real for a minute. The digital world has its dark corners, right? And you absolutely have to protect yourself to make sure this is a smooth, legit transaction. So, how do you do that? How do you stay safe? The answer is incredibly simple and powerful. You use an escrow service. The good news is, most major marketplaces have this built right into their process. So here's how it works. The buyer sends their payment, but not to you. They send it to this neutral third party, the escrow service. The escrow service holds onto that money and gives you the green light to transfer the domain. Once the buyer confirms they have it, boom, the escrow service releases the funds to you. It's really the ultimate protection for everyone involved. All right, before we wrap this up, let's go over some of the common traps that new sellers fall into all of the time. Think of this as a little dose of hard-won wisdom to help you avoid some headaches. First up, watch those annual renewal fees. Seriously, If you're holding on to a bunch of unsold domains, it can get expensive really fast. Second, don't get emotionally attached. I know it's hard, but if a domain just isn't getting any bites, you gotta be willing to let it go. Oh, and remember to factor in those commission fees we talked about. And please don't forget that any profit you make is probably taxable income. And finally, just remember, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It takes research, a lot of patience, and yeah, a little bit of luck. So what's the big takeaway here? Domain flipping is a real business, turning these digital addresses into actual, tangible assets. The internet is always growing, and the perfect name for someone's next billion-dollar idea might be sitting in your portfolio right now. So the only question is, what piece of digital property are you going to find next?